Oh my gosh, this is wild. I'm sponsored by Riverside.
Thank you, Riverside,
Thank
for
you.
sponsoring this recording for today. Yeah, I mean, I'll just give that. Like, I was excited to use this software that I have and see what we could create with it. I think that's for me just how I'm living these days, Luke. Which is, if there's something that I want to try as a new tool to help me perform my new life, I want to both try it out and try it out with people I know and care about.
Yeah.
So I thought this would be just a cool option for us since we've been playing with YouTube and live streams and Zooms. I thought, well, let's see what Riverside might do.
I mean, I think I agree with you. That's the best part of this journey is just trying on new stuff and seeing the new technology that comes out of it. And it makes me curious about the next time we meet. Is it going to be in a studio? Is it going to be holograms? Like, what next technology are we going to keep finding again and again?
Absolutely. Yeah, like there's this feeling of like, oh, I mean, there's already so many new and or different ways we can and have done communication. So like, wow, you're right. Like let's like hologram and let's like time travel and let's, you know, do something that makes us come in like our avatars only or whatever it might be.
That is a
Whatever,
thing.
you know, like I think it's been so growthful for me, and I think I've said this elsewhere, but it bears repeating that, with my life mostly previously as an adult, as an academic who didn't necessarily take a lot of training in or classes in things other than how to write and how to speak by computer or by voice only, to move into these new spaces in social media with platforms like Riverside or YouTube has been such a cool bump for me in my development.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's been so fun and it's been so humbling because I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing. And I'm totally okay with that, even though it's going to maybe make a, I don't know, maybe less than stellar recording or maybe not get as many um, finds or hits on the web. I'm just excited about creating new kinds of ways to reach out to folks.
Yeah. But I mean, that's such a beautiful performance coming from you, going from Professor Perone to a student all over again trying to learn this technology. Like that's you're practicing what you preach right there.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. I feel like I guess I'm just thank you for that because I really am setting an intention about continuously walking that walk. I don't know if that's the right phrase, but I don't usually consider myself a talk the talk only or just giving lip service to, say, statements I make about play or development in my life. I'm trying to also live them. So that's what I guess I mean by walking the walk,
Yeah.
which is like I just don't want to tell people play is important or do something that's new and uncomfortable. And that's good for you, but I'm going to stay in my comfort zone. I want to stretch what I do and how I do things, and this tech thing is certainly one example.
I love that so much. I keep thinking about people that I talk to who I tell them what I'm doing. They're like, "Oh, that's nice. Okay. That sounds terrifying for me, but you go have fun. You do your thing." And it's being able to encourage that whole words. What are words? Words, words, words. Being able to encourage the yes, it's okay to goof up. It's okay to do a brand new performance of yourself that you've never done as long as it's one, well intentioned. It's not the performance of someone beating yourself up or beating someone else up or something like that. And two, that it's honoring you a little bit. It might be a different performance, but it still honors you. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, this Riverside performance honors who Luke Perone is. So it's yeah, like heck yeah, I love this.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for that. Yeah, thanks for that encouragement. Um, I'm curious how it sounds to you when folks say to you when you're talking to them about your journeys,
Hmm.
like, "Oh, that's cool. That sounds terrifying to me," or "You rock on, be your badass self," but I wouldn't or couldn't do that. I'm wondering how that sounds to you or how you respond to that.
Oh gosh, you and me both, my friend. So for me, whenever one, the people that share that with me, there tends to be a commonality. The biggest one is introvertedness. The idea of talking with other people is actually exhausting for them.
Mhm.
So, and then I think of our dear mentors and teachers at ESI, and some of them, I love them all to death, but yeah, if you prefer to be inside with a book, some of our teachers might seem a little exhausting, and that's okay. Um, yeah, but sorry, I'm. Can you hear me? Okay.
I can. You were just
Okay.
mentioning about the ESI book, something about a book.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I had a weird. I think I had a weird glitch sort of thing.
Yeah,
Um.
no, all good.
Okay.
Hooray for glitches.
Hooray for glitches. Um. For yeah. So essentially, I was just saying that our enthusiastic energy coming from ESI, coming from Fred Newman's passionate energy and trickling down might seem a bit intimidating for someone that prefers to be alone with a book at home.
Yeah.
So that's fair. And the entire time we did our study group together, one of my little brain games that I was playing with myself is okay, how can I translate this to someone who is introverted? Because if you're extroverted and you're like, I need to talk to people to energize myself, to feel connected, okay, great. Social therapeutics, perfect
Yeah.
for you. Everything that we're doing, perfect for you. But I, the opposite, actually happens all the time. And so then that's when I played with the big word that you know I love to use, which is intention. So that's when intention first came to me. And so then it's the idea of, okay, what is my intent of being in this session today? Because the beautiful thing about social therapeutics in particular, you don't have to talk. You
Yeah.
can just listen. And you're still getting a developmental benefit from just sitting there and listening.
Mm. In fact, for folks, in fact, it actually for me just as a yes and to that, Luke, it can even be an exciting performance for folks that actually aren't as taken aback by an invitation to talk. To invite folks to try out a new performance of what if I tried out a performance of being a listener more than someone who keeps answering questions or chiming in with ideas. So I guess similarly, it could invite even the more, using your term, introverted person to say, I can do the performance of listening even differently, maybe listening with curiosity, listening with openness, and I can if and when I would like in the group and I create that, create a space for me to also ask a question, say something,
Yeah.
offer something. So I love this reminder of playing with speaking and listening. Because actually, just to be playful, you and I play with that a lot. I've been quite vulnerable regularly saying, I talk too much in these meetings. And then I told you about when we met and I had a AI service that transcribed one of our meetings and then it made a percentage of how much both of us spoke. And I was like 70% and you were like 30. I'm like, oh no, I don't like that. Um, I'm going to try to speak less. And you're laughing because you know that happens. So
Yes.
I'm trying that performance of being more quiet, like now.
No, I was going to say that I had the opposite problem. I'm in these sort of groups because, like, if my parents are watching this and they hear me say I'm too quiet, they'll laugh until their livers burst or whatever the term is. Bust a rib laughing. That's the one.
or a liver, or a
Liver.
spleen, or a right knee, or whatever.
Folks, this winter season, take care of your bodies.
Exactly. Rest, heal, ground.
All the above. But when it comes to social therapeutics and when it comes to the healing work, I tend to take a step back, especially when it's been coming to client work, where I prefer to just let them go and let them talk, and then I'm able to pick up as much as I can. And the challenge tends to be when it's time for me to interject and say something, finding my little knock on the door, so to speak, of that tends to be the challenge, because once you get someone started and the ball's rolling, it's kind of hard to stop the ball rolling every now and again.
So I'm curious, as a fellow practitioner of social therapeutics, how
Hmm.
do you come in when maybe the group conversation's going some way and you want to add something to it, or someone's speaking maybe excessively, whatever that means to you. Maybe you're noticing that there's a performance of someone who's taken the role of speaker for like 7 or 8 minutes nonstop.
Yeah,
I'm just curious, what are you noticing as an offer to the group to support the conversation to be as co-created as possible?
great question. I know every social therapeutic practitioner has a different answer for that question. For me personally, that's when I pull out philosophy. And I
Hmm.
really enjoy, because typically 9 times out of 10 in a social therapeutic session, we're creating a zone of proximal development using a problem that a participant might have.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to address the problem head on, that's one, what everybody else in the group is doing. Oh, I'm having a problem with my ex or something like that, and they're throwing out the questions, well, how long, and all that sort of stuff. But for me, the joy is trying to look slightly abstract at the thing that we're working on. So 90% of the time, a problem, and trying to create a philosophical question to be able to look at the problem in a different way.
Mm.
Sometimes it doesn't strike home exactly, but luckily, that's why it's a social therapeutic event where it's more
Yeah.
than one person.
Yeah.
Um, but when it does work, and when someone's just like, "Oh, I see what you did there," okay, that I'll be honest, that feels really good. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I love this. I love this reminder of the invitation to ask the group to try out a new performance. And I love your offer of philosophy as that part, not part of, but an invitation, a way to invite folks to try a new way to speak or try a new kind of way to build this conversation. Yeah, that's really great. And what have you noticed when folks maybe take that? How do they respond to that invitation? Of course, honoring not the specifics of what people
yes, of
say,
course.
but how have you noticed the group respond to an invitation to philosophize or wonder about new performances?
Um, Going through my little Rolodex there.
Yeah.
For me, it's either my favorite moments is when it doesn't work, because it's like, oh, that's
Mm.
interesting. Anyway, and then they just keep going down, and that kind of that tickles me. When it does work, it's tends to be about like a 5 second pause, a little light bulb of a like, oh, moment, which I love, and then very similar to what you and I do, it's just playing with the thought. And that's I mean, for me, that's the goal of social therapeutics, because it's not solving the problem,
Yeah.
it's playing with the problem.
Yeah.
And I I like playing with the brain. That's
Hmm.
I was never a strong physical improviser when I was on stage and stuff like that. For me, it was always chewing with text, playing with the stories, all that side. I love the cerebral side. So being able to invite that into what I'm doing, that's when it's like, oh, this is fun. Yeah.
I love that phrase, playing with the brain. So I'd love to play with that, playing with the brain.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, like for me, like my first when I heard it was like, oh, that's so powerful. And actually, it's a very odd phrase for me, but like in a curious way. So let me just like speak back to it to say, when I heard that phrase, I was wondering about playing with the brain, and I'm wondering, is the brain the choice you made of a location or an object, and is there something you wanted to say about that either object or location? And
This is
how
why, oh my gosh, this is why I love talking to you so much.
back at you. And as I notice, I
Oh,
sometimes talk a little too much, so I'm going to be quiet. Can you go,
oh,
yeah, like wonder with me, like what is it about the brain that needs playing with? Maybe.
okay, okay. For me, answering the second question of why does the brain need playing? In my worldview, my family, my cultural upbringing,
Mm-hmm.
the brain is sacred.
Mm.
And so it's this whole, you're born, you go to school, you grow up, you go to college, you go beyond. It's ba-da, 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 ba-da. And when it comes to play, that sacred conception of the brain, picturing like Oxford and books and all that sort of stuff, where it's sacred brain, it's there's not as much time for play, especially as an adult. If if you're an adult and you want to play, go to a community center, go find a squash court or a soccer
Yeah.
field or basketball. Like that's play. It's not play. It's not improv play. It's not creative play. So when I say play with the brain, for me, it's kind of trying to disrupt that Oxford traditional way of thinking, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, which is also slightly contradictory because for me, playing with the brain is basically trying to take stuff I already know and twist it on its head. So it's trying to take the text and materials that I studied and then just try to reconceptualize it.
Yeah, mixing it up or
Yeah.
changing it up. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. I loved that question though. That was such a great question.
Thank you. Thank you for yes anding the question. Um, yeah, I don't. I mean, I have wonders about what you're giving, and so I mean, I guess my response to what you're giving is that the I think from what I felt from what you gave is that if we have particular using the brain as an anchor again, since that's the object, if there are particular neural pathways or synaptic transmissions, things that move across synapses,
Yeah,
sorry
yeah.
for the boring neurological terms or things, but if there's a particular way that we do things, because that's what behavior tends to be known as. We have particular activities that we just do almost without thinking about them. We just do them. For me, one of the many gifts you're giving around playing with the brain is being both present with our assumed ways of thinking and
Yeah.
doing things, and play as a practice of reorganizing or transforming those practices.
That's so cool. Of course, the first thought that comes to mind is Fred Newman's example of even if you're walking home, finding a different way to walk.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
such a rich man. I love that metaphor and image of someone walking home and both maybe walking in a new way, like maybe just with their arms, as well as maybe instead of taking Main Street, taking Fifth Avenue or
Yeah.
whatever the side street or less common path is for you. That's such a powerful image for me of what development is, which is trying out and creating and going on different paths than we're maybe only thinking we can. Because when you were wondering about the philosophizing and asking folks maybe with new questions or new possibilities, it's when I'm doing groups both with you and not with you physically there, but still there energy wise,
Yeah.
I often just ask people in the group, what are we assuming about what we are doing? And or what people are doing in their lives, and what other possibilities are there? What other activities could we both create here and or create around this conversation topic, or presenting problem that someone's discussing, or life event that's coming up? And that kind of prompt alone already stimulates you mean there's more than what we're talking about going on? Or there's
Yeah.
more than what I think we can do about it that we could do? Even if we don't know yet what the other possibility or activity could be, I think just stopping for a moment and saying, let's go a little slower here. Let's check our assumptions or limitations about this and just remind ourselves we can do more than we are or think about this. That's, for me, another yes and another possibility of playing with the brain.
100%. Yeah. I I'm personally conflicted right now because you mentioning that immediately made me think about our last social therapeutic session that we ran together, because there
Ooh.
were beautiful moments that reflected exactly what you're talking about, where it's this, let's check our assumptions at the door, and people come back being like, oh, we can do this in a completely different way. That's awesome. But at the same time, I don't want to share any of the details.
Yeah, of course, of course.
So I feel like I'm teasing the audience a little bit of like, this was great. Too bad you're not going to know more about it.
Yeah, be like, ooh, like,
Ooh.
ooh. Yeah, I think it's, so here's the thing about for me. I think
Yeah.
it honors how inspiring those conversations are, that we're still feeling and celebrating them days, weeks, whatever, months after they happen. And it's a reminder that it's something everybody can do and that we're still willing and interested in doing it. Um, So yeah, like I just think that's awesome. I just think that, and we definitely want to keep building with people and inviting folks to do this kind of work with us or play with us. So yeah, maybe instead of being disappointed they don't know the details of that session, come create our next sessions or come create other possibilities with us.
Yeah.
We'll definitely share more about that too.
Absolutely. Um, One thing I want to throw in there, and I want to
Yeah.
know your thought, is this isn't just for a social therapeutic session. People can take this anywhere in any sort of conversation.
Yeah.
Um, I I'm reflecting on something that my fiance Lindsay was talking about years ago with a coworker of hers, and of course I'm going to butcher it because that's just what I do. But essentially, the breakdown was if you're in a conflict with someone. So, especially this was during 2020 and COVID and all
Mm,
those sort of things. So, in conflict with someone, just start asking questions. And
yeah.
it's the idea of the questions are breaking things down, which is a completely different performance than the go to performance of we're in a conflict right now.
Mhm.
So, recreating the neural pathways, recreating our performance, and 9 times out of 10, creating a different product than what we originally had. Of we're disagreeing, let's just go.
Yeah, that's so powerful, Luke. When I hear that, it reminds me of the power of something we did when we were at the. Well, I don't know if this was during our share time, but I think it was when I was doing the international class, which you did also, but just not
Yes,
at the same time I did the international class. And we did an exercise where our conversations were only in the forms of questions.
I love that game.
And I think when we did that, it invited us to move beyond the traditional activity of if a question is asked, an answer must follow,
Mhm.
or the statement, I don't know the answer, like some sort of ending to that. And the ongoing questioning built a form of curiosity because we weren't being beholden to the answer has been given, the thing has been concluded, we're done with this topic. It practices, it built, at least I think for me at least, it built my muscles, practices of being curious by continuously keeping to ask questions rather than, can someone answer this question? Can we get this done? Can we fix this problem? And that for me is a super powerful and often unfamiliar activity for folks, and seems like a cool example of playing with the brain.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Um, the biggest thing about that game activity that I want to point out is that it's not easy.
Yeah.
There's, um, at least in my group, when I performed with people with that activity, there was a lot of frustration.
Mm.
And to me, that frustration is good
Yeah.
because it means that you're recreating those neural pathways. You're redefining how you're looking at this conversation. And it's like the first
Mm.
day of going to the gym.
Yeah.
It's going to hurt, but it's going to hurt in a good way.
Yeah. So rich. So rich.
Yeah. So I think that's, and you and I both have talked so much about academic settings and that culture. So being able to take these different ways and applying it to a classroom setting where, especially in grad schools and doctoral programs, they're expected to sit there, absorb the information, spit the information right back out. So being able to say, okay, you're not going to answer, you're just going to ask questions. It's going to blow their minds and
For
it's going to be
sure.
amazing.
For sure. Yeah, especially since so much of at least people's in the Western world prior, say K through 12 undergrad type experiences have been more from the acquisition of learning or acquisition of content, that inviting folks to be curious and generate questions. Because just to share, you can't, I don't mean this like in a no one's allowed, but what gets you finished with a doctorate, at least in my experience, and most people who get some form of doctoral study, is that you've asked a research or inquiry question that you've been exploring to such a point that your mentors deem you able to be an expert on it or do research on it. And that can't come from merely knowing theory or knowing ideas. It has to come in you being curious and trying to create something with those questions, learn and discover and create something. And that's a huge shift, I think, to move in our lives from being someone who just consumes info or acquires content to being a creator of research, a group, our emotions, our relationships, because we often see those as things that are just existing and all we do is play a role in them or act out the familiar scripts of them. And that's the one thing I liked about doctoral study. I
Yeah.
don't all the other like stressors and competition and all that stuff. No, thank you. But that constant reminder of no, this is where you are contributing to this field, making a unique contribution to this area of study. That doesn't get done enough in the world, and we shouldn't have to wait for the few folks that do decide to get a PhD for those folks to only have that opportunity.
I had that thought. I'm 100% in agreement with you. I'm glad the one with the PhD said that. But yeah, how do you think we can encourage anyone and everyone to think as creatively and with as much curiosity as a PhD student?
I think, thank you for this question. I'm feeling that we've in some ways given some possible performances for that question by talking about the question game,
Yeah.
checking our assumptions. I will yes and though by inviting something that I also think happens in our social therapeutic groups and often does not come up in say higher education or even K through 12 education or most other contexts, is inviting folks to give what they want to give to build the group or build the environment.
Yeah.
In other words, to support people to move from the shifting of acquiring and consuming to perhaps creating and building is inviting folks to remind them that they have so much to give and we want to build with it.
Okay.
And so for me, when students come in, there's usually a sense of you're the one with the expertise, or even think of traditional therapeutic context. You're the therapist, you're the social worker, you're the psychologist, you're the one that's going to know how to fix me or diagnose me or medicate me or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
The power for me of doing social therapeutics, both as we offer it and in other contexts like at work or in schools, is to invite the support of building a group that wants to and is excited about creating with everybody with whatever they want to create with.
I love that. The biggest thing that struck me in a good way was that idea of acceptance. So having conversations with people whose worldview might be a little different than my own, a lot of what I'm hearing is they're trying to change me.
Yeah, powerful.
So the idea of having an invitation where it's putting yourself into the melting pot, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's the idea of how can we work with what you're bringing to us rather than, no, what you are is wrong. We're going to try to fix you and change you.
Yeah.
I feel like if we keep having conversations with that in mind, life's going to be beautiful.
And that's a new pathway for folks because we do play the agree disagree duality game or the right wrong or even in academia the defend present an argument kind of language or practice. So that's so rich to offer and create a space of curiosity, of discovery, of play, of philosophizing. And I think that's a huge shift. And one thing I'm noticing for me is as I do this work as now in the coaching sense, in addition to my academic life or just everyday life as Luke Perone, is, I don't know how to say it, I think it's a life practice for me of, I guess the best thing I can say is like being patient with that process. Like, in other words, the gift I'm giving here is saying, not that because we've just discovered something, we now have to do it or we have to get it fully or do it all the time now. Just being patient that we're taking our steps meeting by meeting, conversation turn by conversation turn, and that we are creating this path that's not bound by timelines or deadlines or expectations of getting somewhere. That's been a big growth for me, especially having been schooled perhaps way too much in formal learning environments, which have learning outcomes and deadlines and timelines for things. To be open to saying, we're just taking this as and how long we need, and it's going as it needs to go without any deadline or finality attached to it, is a newer performance for me.
I think that's a new performance for a lot of people.
Yeah. Thanks for that. I feel, how is that, if at all, showing up for you? I know you also have done teaching different age groups, different content areas.
Yeah.
But how is that, in any way, showing up for you around letting go of those kinds of expectations or timelines or outcomes, for example?
So my brain is split right now, which is always
Good.
fun. I love it so much. Whatcha.
Play with it.
I went capitalism first, actually. The idea of I'm patient, you're a doctor, something's wrong with me, I'm going in, I want you to fix me as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that's not what we do. That's not how this works. We are going to experience each other. We're going to grow together. We're going to listen, but this isn't going to be something that happens overnight. So there's that side of things, and that was my first immediate reaction. And then when it comes to former teaching and middle school and theater and all that sort of stuff, there's one, learning outcomes and expectations,
Bingo.
which, oh, my skin crawled just hearing
Bingo.
that all over again.
Yeah.
But yeah, what happens if I'm putting on the last theater show I did for a middle school was Frozen, which was very sweet. It turned out very well. What would happen if I didn't do that show?
Yeah.
What would happen if developmentally I was watching the ensemble and we started to create something that wasn't the script, that they want to go somewhere else? Psychologically, philosophically, and developmentally, that would be a wonderful thing. That would be a great way for the students to take what they learned and enhance it and develop it and grow. But from a school point of view, from a expectation point of view, that would be deemed a failure. So that's
disappointing. Yeah, it's disappointing to hear that it would be deemed a failure. That's disappointing to hear. I'm not surprised, but I'm disappointed nonetheless.
Yeah. That's the revolutionary thing that we're talking about here, though. It's we had a similar conversation in one of our sessions where it's the teaching artist might come in with an intention that's different than the client's. What do we do? What happens? And then the students come in with a completely different intention, different expectation, and now it's a performance with three completely different scripts that three completely different people are reading, trying to put something on stage.
Yeah.
I went a little metaphorical there, but
right, no. But the shift then is the social therapeutic shift for me is that in your example of maybe the different outcomes or expectations of, say, the funders, the teachers, the parents, the administration, the kids, sets up authority. Like some one of those or more is going to win out.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the funder. Maybe it's the teaching artists themselves. Maybe it's what the parents are paying for, or they said, well, we put our kid in your program, kind of a thing. Then that shifts to me from that Marxist sense of then shifting from the authority of one voice hierarchically to the collective creation of power, which is what I think a social therapeutic or improv dialogue or something more co-created is like, which is we're building this together and it is not any one person's responsibility, decision, and we are not beholden to any expectations or outcomes from it, other than we're going to create it. That might be the only expectation. If there is a need for any expectation, it's that we're going to invite everybody to create it together, however, whenever we can.
Yeah. I love that. And that's why I'm here. That's honestly 100% why I'm here. I wanted to create a different performance.
Me too.
I was tired of the same performances, especially with my own mental well-being, my own my own mental well-being and my own personal development. I was tired of the same steps that I was told over and over again. And social therapeutics is the most beautiful challenger of that. It's not going to a doctor and saying, this is why I'm unhappy, and the doctor says, you need to do X, Y, and Z. It's going to a group of people, sharing some of my problems, and then just playing with the problems. Which I love that phrase because of how I'm trying to find a more positive word than irritating, but it irritates.
No, that's not. But say more about either why you're using, not the why. I don't mean why like defend it. I mean either say more about the word that you're using and or why you're not so sure you want to use that one. Because I found it very provocative.
That's That's why I want to use it, was the provocativeness. The idea of the sand in the oyster
Hmm.
that irritates and forms the pearl.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking right now. It's
Yeah.
that through, I mean, we're going back to the beginning of our conversation, through creating a different performance, we're mixing things up so much that we create that pearl. That pearl is just a different neural pathway.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I just also know that, oh, you're so irritating is always a down thing. It's not a, oh, you're so irritating, which it should be. Oh, you're the
Yeah.
sand that creates the pearl.
Exactly. You're creating, and I mean this also in ways that we can play with what we mean by word use, but we're creating friction, new kinds of ways that we can sense the discomfort or create new combinations that might feel like a new pair of shoes and or new whatever, something new eyeglasses that we might need to feel more comfortable with over time. But it is, you're right, it's like an irritant, it's a friction, it's an agitator. It's these kinds of words that often have a pejorative or like negative sound, but I think we're playing with them as like there are developmental possibilities in those words and activities.
So, right from there, oh gosh, I'm getting excited because I went straight to back earlier to a before moment of, instead of saying introverted, saying people that are comfortable. So how do you deal with someone who's
Hmm.
comfortable and then say,
Hmm.
hey, I got this hot mug of discomfort for you. This is going to be great. Um, and for me, the answer to that, it goes back to, for me, Joseph Campbell. The idea of the hero's journey, the idea of I'm comfortable in my own home.
Yeah.
There's going to be this inciting incident that sends me on my way. I'm going to feel discomfort.
Hmm.
I'm going to return home bigger and better.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love it, Luke. I think I want to also, can I yes and for a moment?
Yeah, yeah, please.
I just want to yes and by saying that when we do our groups, or even when
Yeah.
we build our dialogues, both here and out and other times, we can also give to the group these social and emotional offers. The I need support from the group because I'm feeling irritated. Whatever word, however the person's using the word irritated, or I want to speak up. I usually don't. I just listen, and I want to speak up, and I need help. How do I do that? Can I ask the group for help in
Yeah.
doing that? Or I might say to the group, as I said to you, I tend to talk so much when we meet. How can I do that less, rather than I have to fix that problem myself, or I have to figure out how to do it alone? So I think I wanted to remind us of that, as even not only as we keep growing, but as we keep supporting and building with groups. That's also part of it, is that playing with the brain, giving these types of asks can be something we'll all play with and wrestle with, rather than you take care of it or you work on that for you and that'll make the group better, blah, blah, blah. It's not individual homework, it's collective activity.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And most likely, or yeah, most likely, 90% of the time, that's when the best sessions happen. Is when
Beautiful point.
someone comes in with a question like that, where it's,
Yeah.
I'm tired of not saying anything. How can you guys help me? And
Yeah. Oh, that's such a
yeah,
rich thing. Like I'm feeling the power of someone giving that, because that's just moving beyond the content of the problem or the history of the problem, which
yeah,
people tend to do, which is great. Like no drama or problem with that. People often are very giving with, well, this is the problem I'm having with my ex, or this is the problem I'm having at work. Like the deets of that, the history of that. There's such a powerful yes and when people say, and I need help even being giving this to you all, or giving new kinds of responses here, or building the group differently. That is such a rich thing. You're right. It just really excites me when folks give that, and we can invite folks to do that. I think that's something that I'm learning how to grow as a coach, is to invite folks to not just learn how to respond to each other like, oh, that sucks, you're having a problem with your ex, or oh, I'm sorry, that happened to me too, which is a great response, not judging that. in that play with the brain idea, when folks can say, oh, I'm wondering how we can, for example, invite people to respond to this problem differently, or ask someone to give different kinds of information or new kinds of emotions about how it feels to do this together.
Right.
For me, that expands and makes us feel much more whole than just people with problems and people who might come needing help with problems.
That's awesome.
How does that sound to you? I'm just curious. I performed a little as a person who spoke a little more. How did that sound to you? What are you noticing, or what are you feeling about that?
Ooh, still processing. I'm cooking with it. I enjoy it. I want to build with it. For me, the idea would be oof, I went up on a line there. That is hysterical. I was doing so well, and then I just
Oh, I want to give to you emotionally that I was just curious with whatever you were feeling, not looking for the best, perfect, expected answer, including you saying I need some more time to think about it, or cook with, or I need to marinate on this for a while, using your cooking message or metaphor.
I love that. I appreciate that. I'm so glad other people get to watch that moment because that's exactly what we're talking about. I
Yeah.
wanted to do the best answer. I wanted to sound so profound and so amazing. But yeah, that's exactly what we're saying. I can easily just be like, that was awesome. I don't have anything to add. That was just,
Yeah,
you checked the box and we could have just kept
exactly.
moving forward. And I was like, no, I must yes and. I must keep going.
I would say that was a yes and without challenging what yes and means to either one of us. I'm not saying that you could have also been silent. You could just put your thumb up or, whatever. I think I should just to share relationally, that's me growing to not just use familiar words like, did that make sense? Or did you like what I said? But asking folks to respond, how does that sound to you? What are you noticing? How are you feeling about it? It's just inviting me to play with ways to build conversation. Because again, not that I do this much as a teacher, but often teachers default to things like, did that make sense? Do you all understand? Those kinds of, yeah, right? So
Oh,
I'm playing with new ways to build conversations, both in groups and with my students, to say, how's that sound to everybody? Or how are you feeling about that? Or what else can we give to this idea? Well, just playing with possibilities, including the, I don't know yet, or I need more time, or nothing right now, or whatever it might be. Being expectation less about it, but still being open to, let's keep creating, let's keep exploring.
I, I want other college professors to be watching this right now because I know I, you and I have been talking for many, many months now. So I feel like I understand a little bit of what goes on in your classrooms. And Luke Perone and Orthodox, in my mind, will never be a thing.
I didn't mean to put the claps in
With
the
all the
recording.
love in my heart,
Yeah.
you are
Snap,
beautifully
clap.
irritating.
Oh, you were saying before the recording about mindful person. I think I might also add mindful person and beautiful irritant, right? Or playful agitator, or some other
Wait.
kind, some
Ooh.
brain brain transformer, whatever we want to call this, whatever we want to. Yeah, I don't. I mean, I don't want to create this like unilateral statement of like I'm never unorthodox. I'm never orthodox, but I often feel like this is one of the bazillion ways we could do this, and I just want to invite folks to be present with. We assume there might be only a handful of ways to have a class, to do a discussion, to take a college, to be in college, and let's just remind ourselves that we can create it. So that's just to share. This might be a little bit of a plug for my upcoming book, but that's the main focus of the book that I've got with folks about improv and higher ed, is that the narratives of our lives and what we've created in our context of higher ed are reminders of that play and performance can create new ways of doing what seems like a very scripted world. And so our invitations to the reader is, what do you want to create? Don't just copy what we did and paste it into your class. You can if that supports you. And at the same time, yes, and it by creating whatever you want to create. And I think that's part of my lack of orthodoxy, is that I'm not interested in creating more people who just think and do the same things.
That's amazing. Yeah, 'cause my immediate thought was, how do you teach this to a math professor where it's all formulas and it's only one way to do the performance? It's you memorize
Yeah.
this formula and then you apply it and then it spits out the outcome.
Yeah, fair
There
enough.
is a way to mix up that performance,
Nice.
but it's and that should be the fun of this. That should
Absolutely,
be
my
the
friend.
fun of being a human.
Absolutely. And even with something as algorithmic as math, is playing with, you know, our assumptions of, for example, I'm not a math guy, meaning I'm not a mathematician by trade, but even philosophizing about, what is math? Is math only algorithms? Is that, or finding the correct answer? I'm not suggesting you're wrong, but perhaps if we brought a mathematician into this chat, maybe that's our next episode, they might be like, no, it's about ideas about numbers and creating new play with numbers. And I think, or ideas and shapes. And I think that's a reminder of what we do so gorgeously in social therapeutics, is challenging our assumptions of how things are or what things are supposed to be like.
Yeah.
Including, for example, math may be more than just finding X or solving the problem or answering with the correct answer.
Jeez.
You know?
Ah,
That, because even like, okay, 10 more seconds, like that's why for me, when folks think of development, the assumption usually is, when they come to my human development class, well, Dr. Pete, just tell me, how do babies grow, or what's adult development going to be like? When does the sagging start? When do the gray hairs come in?
yeah.
And I don't think those aren't valuable questions. So I'm not judging them pejoratively by saying, I think I just want to invite them to not only see that development is something that happens to them, or there are stages that are outlined about how babies grow. It's that we create our development.
Yes.
And so if we can create our groups, we can create our development, I think that's already a powerful transformation of the assumptions we have about what therapy or therapeutics can be, what psychology is, what we do in our group, what we do when we teach. And I think that, even in and of itself, is an irritant.
Yes. Yes. I was thinking about a conversation I had with a friend recently, and they were talking about reading an article, and the article stated that the reason why we say that development ends at age 25 is because when they were doing the clinical trials, they just did 0 to 25,
Bingo.
and that was it.
Bingo.
So, exactly what you're saying, asking those irritating questions, being able to be like, wait a minute, why is it only 25? And being able to go further, not only does it help us as a human, but it helps us as a society. So that way we're not stuck in this, well, the Earth is obviously the center of the universe, but wait, what's that sun thing doing there? And like, that's how we grow. It's through the beautiful act of irritating.
Yeah. Oh, I love the beautiful act of irritating.
The beautiful act of
I
irritating.
hadn't considered that till now, but now I'm like, oh, that's a running title of my potential memoir down the line, or maybe the book we're going to write about our practice, the beautiful act of irritating,
Oh, I love
and
it.
that we'll write with our, anybody who wants to support building it with us. I love that phrase, the beautiful act of irritating.
Beautiful act of irritating. I got chills just. So then here's a question. Is it important to take this irritating mindset everywhere? Or is it only a tool in the tool belt? Like, should I look at everything that I do as let's shake it up. How can we shake it up? How can I, on my journey home, how can I take a left instead of a right or something like that? Or is it only for, I'm feeling tense right now, how can I irritate the situation?
Do we have to know how pervasive the irritating is before we do it?
So you're saying that it would be a judgment or identifying the specific, and that's a no-no.
I don't want to give off the no/approval
Fair.
feeling with love to you. I think I was just philosophizing back to saying I was wondering if we have to know if we're going to do whatever we call irritating just because, or I would wonder if even doing any of our conversations, any of our activities is an irritant because it's never the exact same way we did it before. I wonder if we can notice even the most minuscule irritant, even if it feels like it's a very similar way we drive home or have dinner or talk to our partners. Like, just to share with us, we've had some of these same conversations over the past few months, past year plus in the program. I don't think this is the exact same conversation we've had, though. I think we're irritating each other in the ways we're meaning irritate. But I know I irritate you in other ways, too. Right? I think by just creating, we're irritating without saying, I'd like to irritate our notions of play and social therapeutics. I think that I feel it's a bit burdensome to me. So I think by creating like what we're doing in this episode, we're irritating without coming in expecting to irritate. Just by creating with open hearts and minds, playfulness, philosophical wonders, curiosity. Here's my practice. How does that sound to you? Or what are you noticing from what I just gave? Including, you got to marinate.
I feel cooked right now. I'm glowing. This
hot
is
tamales, Scaros right there.
Tamales. No, it's I went straight to phenomenalism, which is one of my favorite theater terms. And essentially, the idea is it's social therapeutics on stage, where you hear a cow moo out in the background. Of course, you're going to tie it into the performance.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the invitation that we're offering right now. It's being observant of the irritant. It's not trying to challenge, I must irritate everything. It's just, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And allowing that to be worked into the performance instead of, unfortunately, what I've noticed peers and other people do, which is I must do everything exactly the same way because that's the routine and routine is good and blah, 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 blah. Enjoying when things aren't exactly correct and observing when things aren't exactly correct.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Me too. Like, I don't do this type of research, and intentionally so, but it's like when we say in research about those data points that we consider outliers don't get brought into the major data set because they're outliers to the hypothesis or to the trend or norms of what the data are saying. And I'd like us to play more with outliers. And maybe not only the outliers, I think all the data points are worth playing with is what I'm saying. So in your point about the cow mooing, there's an assumption there of like, the cow wasn't supposed to moo right there, or the cow was supposed to be silent, or some other kind of expectation. Your gift, and what I think we do when we build groups with folks, is saying, okay, the cow just moves. What are we gonna build with that?
Yeah, exactly. And almost every time it's a beautiful disruption.
Absolutely.
It's one of my favorite shows. Recently, it was a one-act play about the Triangle Waistcoat Fire. I think I'm saying it right. It's
say more if you'd like.
There's a historian that's going to be like, yeah, it's completely wrong. But basically, it was a fire that happened at this waistcoat factory, or not waistcoat, some sort of fabric factory. It unfortunately killed a lot of people, and it started the conversation about workers' rights and well-being and stuff like that. It was beautifully done. This was in a high school. While they were in their final moments, you heard a fire engine driving by.
Wow.
And it's that, like, that can't be planned. You can't have a director sitting in the back being like, I need to recreate that every night. That was just for that one group, that one audience, and it was perfect. And that to me is life. That to me is social therapeutics. That to me is everything, is finding those irritants that wasn't supposed to happen, but then recognizing how beautiful that moment is now.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, as we say in improv, like everything is an offer. So the way people are standing, the tones of their voices, the external or off-stage noises, whatever it might be, let's create with all of that. And I think our group and the practice of social therapeutics is building with all the stuff that comes up. I don't want to call it stuff like as if it's a thingy, but it's creating with everything and
Yeah.
everybody. Um, and I loved your reminder of that performance having the fire engine going. It's a reminder of each performance is going to be a new one. We can't do the same thing, even if the script is the same, even if the time we meet is the same each week, even if the number of people are the same. We're creating something each time, as we say in improv, that's like the opening and closing night of the show. There's something to celebrate for the magic and power of what it's doing right here and now that we're creating together.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh my God.
Love.
Yes.
Love.
Yes. No notes, nothing to add. Boom, done. Drop the
Mic drop.
mic. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm kind of wishing that we did this before Thanksgiving, because then the challenge would be looking at holiday traditions. I suppose we could do it for the winter too.
Sure.
How can we irritate those holiday traditions?
Yeah.
Does it have to be a turkey every year? Does it
Absolutely.
have to be? Oh my gosh. We came back from Thanksgiving and Lindsay goes, what would happen if it wasn't a giant meal? What if it was just a small little portion? And that's a completely different performance right there.
Absolutely.
All that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I think that's, and it's one thing. I love ESI to death. I absolutely do. It's one thing to have the same language and the same people and the same conversations about this. And it's another trying to challenge ourselves to step outside of the institute and think, how can I irritate my own life?
Yeah. Ooh, I
I
love that
use this
phrase.
all the time now. I'm in
Yeah, I
love with
love
it.
that. I love that phrase too. Irritate your own life. Irritate other non Eastside Institute activities, whatever you might be calling that. And again, without knowing how to do it or expecting that you have to do it. I think just by creating together, I think this is something I want to come back to. We're irritating by creating something together that often is it's not even often, it is revolutionary because we're creating it, and it's also philosophically developmental because it's a reshaping of that we don't just live in worlds or just act out scripts. We're creating our lives. And that can be the irritant that folks are feeling in our group is, oh no, we're creating this and you're creating your life. I mean, I'm even thinking of what the Eastside Institutes, they have free sessions every
Yeah.
month, and their term for that is called creating our mental health. And that's a provocative, irritating term because often first of all, we don't speak about mental health as a collective, and we don't speak about creating mental health. We talk about diagnosing, treating, fixing, healing, not maybe not problematic exclusively terms, but that is a reframe that's a revolutionary one to say, let's create our collective health, mental health in this case. That's irritating. That's provocative. And that is something that maybe in light of your wonder about doing it with others could be something we might invite folks to do who aren't necessarily only at the Institute or already familiar with social therapeutics or improv and play, for example. Because I think that's reminding me because we also have this shared interest and connection to energy and spirituality and yoga, for example. We talk about, in my worlds of both yoga and improv, we talk about that off the mat or off the stage practice of it. Not just improvising on stage, but improvising as a practice of life, or not just doing the yogic breathing and yogic postures on the mat, but living as a yogi outside of the 90-minute class, for example. So I think that's a powerful wonder that I'd like to keep exploring with you, is how do we invite folks to live social therapeutic lives, and not just only if they're coming to a weekly group or have one-on-one coaching with us or whatever it might be. To live irritatingly, to live philosophically, to live curiously.
Yeah, I'm I'm playing with challenges right now because honestly, I'm trying to be like, how can I be devil's advocate for this at this moment?
Say
Because
more. Devil's advocate for me, devil's advocate for
I
social
mean,
therapeutic.
that was such a beautiful statement, and my mind went immediately to, okay, how can we solidify this by arguing it, and like how can we like make it air to so like immediately
Yeah,
my
say
thought
more,
was yeah.
please.
So my thought was going back to those who are comfortable. And it's why
Mm.
should I be irritated? Why should I mix up? So I'm reading The Hobbit right now.
Okay.
So Bilbo Baggins in the Shire. Why would I have this beautiful fireplace? I have all the food I want. Everything's perfect. I'm well liked. Why would I want to irritate my life? Why would I want to mix things up?
Hmm. I mean, yeah, I think there's a powerful offer there. I think my response, to be curious with you, is that I don't think we're playing the dichotomy or duality of go with the flow, do as you always are, or irritate everything. I think it's that cool, co-created, unknowable, not dual, I'm sorry, dialectic of both playing with and in the familiar, and playing both with irritating the familiar and being familiarly irritant without being overly us versus them about it.
Yeah.
So and without knowing how you play with that, because we still live with the, like, even if we talked differently in a group, we're still maybe using English to do so, which is a language that we know. We could also have a whole social therapeutic session in gibberish, or a mix of
Yeah.
gibberish and other languages. So I think it's playing beyond the duality of 100% irritate, 100% go with how it's always been, or why change it up kind of narrative, and wondering about even how in those continuously create and are created by each other. And we don't know it, but we can create it. And we do it even if we don't plan it.
Yeah.
Okay, quick other book plug. When I invite people in my first chapter of the book to think about the performance approach, which is something that's coming up for us today, I say to the reader reading this book, let's move the book differently as you're reading it right now. Just how the book is being held, and see what shifts, if anything, for you. Maybe choose a different location for your body. Maybe if
Yeah.
you're seated in your favorite chair, lie down and read the next page. What if anything, shifts for you? It's an invitation to say it doesn't have to be this. I'm now going to do something completely irritating. It could even
Yeah.
be these minutiae. The book is still the same. The book is the book, but it's not the book anymore because you've changed your relationship to the book by holding it differently,
Okay.
by positioning your body differently, by maybe pausing and reading each word and stopping every 5 seconds before you move on to the next word. It's just creating even the more everyday changes. It can be a curious playing with the brain. I think you're offering a very provocative question of what if folks are resistant or questioning why. And I think that becomes the philosophical wonder of why do we think this is important? When is it not important? Why do we think it's not necessary? Rather than trying to convince people or not that it should be done. Um, how does that sound to you, if anything, coming up for you for that?
So for me, it seems like there's two types of irritants.
Okay.
There's the person that I'm going to use myself as an example here, where it's okay, I need to shake up as much as humanly possible. So long road trips, doing something crazy, dancing, whatever, to just, I need to shake it up. And that's one form of irritating. And then the other form is life's going to irritate anyway. So you can either be mad that it's irritated you, or you can be curious. You can play with it. So, and then take that and work with it. So I'm enjoying that there's multiple sides of irritating.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's multiple sides of it. There's multiple grades or gradients of it. Like the small one of like just switching the music you're playing on that long road trip, right? Singing a different kind of song. Um, Even noticing that you want to try to irritate but aren't yet sure how to do it or why you want to do it or don't know that you even. I think there's like just so much than the essentialism of this is what an irritating practice would look like in this case. There's nothing essential or fundamental about irritating. It could be as minor and or magical or grandiose as we want it to be. Part of my growth is to then support the group to be okay with even just knowing it's possible, but not needing or wanting to do that right now. Just keeping it as a tool if and when we want for another time.
I love that.
Or another place. Like, I'll keep that in mind, Luke, but I might not want to do that now. But maybe I'll try that with my partner or boss or student or whomever it might be. Even like when I'm doing yoga, I'm like, I hear my teacher give me a suggestion of, flexing a certain different way or breathing in a particular way as I move into a posture, and I might be like, I hear you. Either I don't know how to right now, or I can't, or I'm pissed at my body right now and don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I hear you and am open to keeping this offer in mind and yes-anding it some other time, next class maybe, or at home, or in some other way. I think that's why it's an invitation to build with, and it can exist beyond the space of the class, the session, this chat, and be something we all can do as and when we want.
Love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. I was tickled specifically when you said something along the lines of irritating practice. Because one, that's absolutely true. Two, we both have our own private practices where we're trying to be irritating.
Yeah.
We're trying to shake things up.
Yeah.
And it's both from our everyday life. I didn't want to be a middle school teacher forever. From our conversations, I'm not sure how you feel about being an academic forever, but I have my assumptions and stuff like that. So irritating our own life, but then it's irritating our own life in a way that encourages others to be irritating.
Yeah. We're both creating the irritating space, and we're trying to create new kinds of irritations for our own lives. And so I think I used this phrase today, forgive me, but that's for me a walking the walk kind of feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, it's like I'm not, and I'm just like, I think that's the power of social therapeutics is that I'm not separate from the group. I'm not that kind of clinician at all or practitioner, excuse me. But I just know historically there have been kinds of therapeutic modalities that see the therapist as separate from the client or group, for example. I think the power of social therapeutics is that it is a collective activity that is with with me, I'm with, or if it's us together co-leading, we're also both building the group and impacted by it, rather than we're just supporting the people in the room or in the Zoom space to grow and we leave unaffected. For me, I don't think that happens. I can't speak for you, but I never leave a group unaffected, nor do I find myself not growing or building with the group and taking what they give me, moving in my own life.
It'd be hard not to. It'd be very hard to just walk away,
Yeah.
unfazed, anything.
Yeah.
I would love to invite. I need to take a step back. I'm going so fast in my own brain. I went straight from that to medical professionals that need to do that. That I know we have people in our family group that have a background with pediatrics and specifically, I believe, pediatric oncology.
Wow.
So the study of cancer in children, you have to disassociate.
Yeah.
You can't take anything with you because it's going to mess you up. So being able to offer a space like this for people that have to disassociate, and it doesn't have to be, oh my gosh, this awful thing happened to me at work today, because that's not going to be productive. To be blunt and kind of rude, like if you need to unload. That would be perfect and absolutely fine. But there's not going to be a development off of it. It's going to be a hour-long help, and then you're going back into the office the next day. So that's when the social therapeutic side comes in. That's when the irritating side comes in of how can we shake things up for you?
Yeah. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Appreciating your giving also the decision that people need to make for themselves at the moment of saying, this might be more than I can take on.
Yeah.
Like I felt in your example around, say, pediatric oncology, or maybe what healthcare givers might feel around, the loss, the pain, the dis-ease that people are every day experiencing in their lives. That may not be I have to now take all that on, because I don't think that's also what I mean by like I take on the people's problems when they come up in the group. I think I'm taking on the power of us creating something, including giving our emotionality or giving our growth, giving our struggles. I think it's more of an inspiration than I'm being holding on to their things. So I think I wanted to give it, because again, my sense of what sometimes people think about as clinicians or coaches is how to create that distance of boundary. And I'm not suggesting we're boundaryless, like we just say whatever, but at the same time, I think it's more for me that I'm affected not so much by, now I'm not going to be able to sleep because someone brought up a big problem. It's that I'm going to be continuously inspired by and curious about how to keep building this group.
Yeah.
And how to keep building other groups, including with the mess, including with the discomfort, including with the irritations, rather than I can't sleep because somebody mentioned a problem, or I can't distance myself from their life situation. But was that what you? I want to connect with you because that's what I heard about the, say, more medical approach and the oncology example. Is that what you were referring to or wondering about with the distance or let go of that?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I think that checks the box pretty dang well. I think I wanted to extend an invitation to especially people and individuals that feel like they need to disassociate any part of their life. And it doesn't have to just be work. We disassociate all the time. I know my personal disassociation is finances. Let's just cut that off and not think about it. Perfect, done.
Fair enough.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, extending an invitation, because social therapeutics, you cannot disassociate. You can't. You can't. It's impossible. We share, we feel. Right. I know. I feel weird praising myself right now. I'm going to get through it anyway. My personal tool that I feel is best for me is empathy. I I shine when it comes to empathy. I have an A+ in empathionics. But
I totally
and
support that without giving you another grade, but I support your gift and feel it.
yeah. Where was it? So social therapeutics, though, it is an exercise in empathy. It's an exercise in I'm listening to you. We're going to play with irritating. We're going to play with the problems. And at the end of the day, we're walking away with that melting pot of all of our stuff, and we're going to take away, and a little bit of each other's going to be on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're giving me this gift that says that maybe what we can take away, if that's a phrase we want to use right now, is the reminder that it's possible to build a group and play with our brains and irritate and develop and connect and know that it's possible rather than we fixed a problem or we're still going to stew over that problem. I think that's, for me, that's like you're helping me in many ways. For me, that's like the off the mat or off the stage feel of social therapy, is that I know that building groups and building with everyone and everything is a possibility, and that's what I keep bringing to the world because I know that I did it in my Thursday weekly group with Luke and Luke.
Yeah.
Or in my one-on-one coaching, or in my reading and learning about this practice. That for me is the life off the mat feel of social therapeutics. Is that I know it's possible because I can do it with my group when we meet.
Okay. I want to say this out loud now.
Oh, go for it.
Because I feel like I will forget when the time comes. So I'm saying it. Digital evidence. If I forget it, we can bring this back up and be like, ha. So in November, we did a social therapeutic session.
Yes.
And it was super successful and super amazing. We decided to continue the party train, so to speak. And we have another social therapeutic session that's available to anyone and everyone that's interested in joining us. That's December 18th from 6:30 to 8 o'clock.
Eastern time.
Eastern time, thank you. 6:30 to 8 o'clock Eastern time. That means that basically the middle of the week before the holiday week. So that is a perfect opportunity for all of us to practice taking social therapeutics off the mat. Because one, it doesn't matter if you're Christian or Jewish, the holidays are at the same exact time anyway.
Yeah.
It's going to be it's going to be hectic, it's going to be irritating, both regardless of the good or the bad type of irritating. There's going to be beautiful craziness.
Yeah.
So how can we take our social therapeutic philosophies, our invitations of play, our observing when life is irritating and not being irritated by the irritating into the new year, essentially.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Thank you for declaring and inviting. Yeah, I'd love to keep that in mind as we move into the end of this calendar year and create a new performance maybe in 2025 as we embark on different kinds of holidays between now and the next few weeks and months for folks. So I love that reminder, and I love that not even maybe, we're inviting our group on the 18th to not only come together to create, irritate, play, and to wonder if and how that possibility could be with their own celebrations and rituals and life activities outside of that time. That's so beautiful. And that's a really provocative offer rather than just it's a one-time thing or it's only for the richness of that 1 hour and a half. That's really great. Yeah, we'd love to tell folks that, in addition to links to find out more about our practices, we'll include the link to register for this event and to reach out to us. Is there anything else, Luke, that we want to tell folks about what we're up to or what we're creating that we will also say more or add to our notes, but just as we're maybe closing up or editing this scene?
Yeah. I think my biggest thing that I keep wanting is for people to reach out. It's the joke that I have is like, just talk to me, please.
Yeah.
But that's how, that's where I thrive, is reach out, go to either one of our websites, but if you want to talk to me, go to my website. Shoot an email. Let's have a conversation. I think both of us do free consultations, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a perfect thing of if you looked on our websites, you saw I also do shamanic energy healing as well as social therapeutics. So if you're looking being like, what on earth? Why do I need X, Y, or Z? Or how can I? Consultations are perfect because then we get to sit down. You get to share exactly what's in your heart, and we get to brainstorm together what we should do next. So, yeah, I think that's the bottom line. Have a conversation with us.
Yeah, I love that. So, yeah, everyone listening, watching, connecting with us, in addition to that specific event on the 18th, I love what Luke's offering, and I and that by saying, we'll drop our links to our website and emails, whatever ways people could find us, and reach out if you want to just set up time to check in with us, learn more about what we do, find out ways we can continue to play with and support each other. Yeah, I think that's super important and super rich, and I love that idea, and I'm totally on board with it. I love it. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I guess I'll just add as a quick yes and, if you don't mind. If there's, we'll be posting this, of course, on, maybe you're seeing it on YouTube or you're seeing it on different other platforms. Use the comments to let us know what's coming up for you. If you want to also make this a collective conversation, what's something that one or more of the Lukes talked about that you want to be curious about, or you want to ask about, or you want to give your own experiences with? Let's do that with one-on-one check-ins. Come to our group later this month. Use the comment section of this video or posting. I guess our invitation is, can we keep building something? We'd love to, and we hope you do too.
Oh gosh, how cool would it be to do an entire podcast based off of comments alone?
In fact, that's another thing. Is there something else about this topic that we could build for the next thing we talk about, or the next thing we want to host a session around? Yeah, like build it with us is what we're coming back to. So please do reach out to us, comment, like, listen, share, whatever ways you want to build. We would love to keep building with you, because I certainly don't think I'm saying this without, but I so enjoy building with Luke. And I think one thing we always keep coming back to is let's keep building and supporting both each other and everybody who'd like to build with us.
100%. Perfect.
Thank you so much, Luke.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.